friends, and welcome to episode 172 of the Noclip Crewcast. How are you all doing? Video games. Some video games came out. Unfortunately, they came out like yesterday, so I'm not sure if we've had enough time to play any of them, especially because we've all been watching the Fallout televisual show. And hey, you know what? You know, other video game podcasts will talk about TV show like they know what the fuck they're talking about. We're video producers here, motherfuckers. We know how cameras work. I know how annoyed I was in episode 3 when that big purple lens flare was there, because I'm pretty sure they were using a speed booster on that fucking camera, and it just I know that exact problem. That we can get into the nitty gritty. We're not games journalists who don't understand linear media. Isn't that right, Jeremy Jane?
Yeah, I saw that shot and I was like, this metabones ass bullshit going on my television show. How dare they?
How dare you, sir? Unbelievable. Frank Howley, how you doing, my friend? Tell me about your metabones.
I immediately thought of Wolverine. Does he have metal bones? He's got titanium, adamantium.
Yeah.
No,
Metal bones.
I'm like okay now, but this morning I woke up and I accidentally stepped on my glasses and I was furious. I had to like I put electrical tape. I was really upset, but then I went to Costco and they're going to replace it for free because I got them like 2 months ago. So the world isn't so bad. So, but for like an hour, I was like furiosa. I was
Did you utter like a Rick Moranis yell? Like, were you like, my glasses?
Yeah. Oh no, my glass. No, I just stepped on it. It was like, God, I was just like, I don't know, but yeah. Whatever, but it's okay. But it was just a minor inconvenience, and now I don't know, because I'm going to a wrestling show this weekend, and I don't want to be the nerd with taped up glasses. So I hope I get my glasses replaced by then. So we'll see.
Hey, it works for, you know, Casey Neistat or whatever. He's got paint all over his. You talking about your glasses, and suddenly I was like, oh, I was outside talking to the neighbor, where I was cutting grass and stuff, and I was like, oh, do I have grass in my eye? And I was like, oh no, it's just my contacts are getting tired. And then I tried to take contacts out of both my eyes. I never put on contacts this morning, so I just poked myself in the eye a bunch for no fucking reason.
Took your eyeball out of your eye.
I hate when that happens. I remember one time I was pretty drunk in London years ago, and I came home and I couldn't get my contacts out, and I was like panicking, like, because sometimes they, you know, slip behind your eye a little bit and all this sort of stuff, and I was freaked out about it. And on my phone I was like, what to do when you can't find your contacts in your eye, and the first thing that came up was you don't have contacts in your eye. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't. That's true. And I've been fruitlessly prodding at my fucking retina with my fat fingers for 20 minutes.
The idea of contacts in general kind of freaks me out. The idea of like putting something into your eyeball that just sits there. I've never had glasses or contacts, and I don't know. It's like I worry you'd never be able to get it out. It freaks me out.
When was the last time you had an eye test?
Oh God, so long ago. My eyes are probably fucked.
It's like it's like one of those things you don't realize. Like, I thought my eyes were fine forever, and then the one thing, I used to sit closer to the clock at after school study every year slightly, and I was like, oh shit, that's what's happening. Is my eyes are getting all garbled. The reason I got contacts was because it was like 2 days before my first day at GameSpot. Because I didn't want to wear glasses on camera. That was it. I was like, I need to get surgery, and it's too expensive. And I was like, I guess I'll get contacts. And I remember like trying to figure out how to put them in your, like, that's the thing. It's like the first time you learn how to do it, it like sucks the first 2 or 3 times you're trying, and then it becomes just like the most normal thing in the world. It's like not a big deal. But then you see like old world contact lenses, you know, like fucking 1950s contact lenses.
What were contact lenses like back then?
Just big pieces of glass that, like, that you just fucking stuck in there. My brother had contacts pretty early. He had really bad prescription. Like, he was like 7 or something crazy. He was completely fucking blind. And he when he had his contact, like, he had those ones you had to like take out. They weren't disposable. You had to like put them in and then wash them every day, and they were thick as well. They looked like they weren't too much fun. And if you lost them, you'd be screwed, because it costs like, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds to replace them. Whereas I just like take them out and throw them at my enemies.
I would rather wear if it was between contact lenses, putting a detached little plastic thing in your eye, and wearing like a full helmet with goggles with corrective lenses. Right. I would go for the helmet 10 times out of 10.
See, well, you're lucky, because they actually invented something that's in between those called glasses.
Oh, I've never heard of those.
And some people look cool with glasses. Some people look better with glasses.
Yeah, I think Frank rocks them. Frank wears them well.
Yeah,
I think.
looks it's strong. Yeah,
It's distinguished.
Exactly. Jeremy might look a bit Gordon Freeman.
I think so. Yeah, that's the goatee.
Yeah, the goatee, the general sort of scientific knowledge.
I've put on friends' glasses. I look fucking smart with glasses on. I look
I bet you do.
I look smarter than I am. Like I could just read lines from Disco Elysium and pretend they're original thoughts of mine.
The ones where he's drunk.
Yeah.
The one where he says, "I want to make fuck with you" or whatever to that lady.
Exactly.
Like
I was just reading the line about how like architecture is in a true art form. It's just like masturbation with a ruler or something. I could just like say stuff like that.
We should do that Disco Elysium documentary.
Yeah.
I'm going to send an email after this. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. There's a Patreon show that's gone up as you're listening to this. If you listen to this on Friday, Patreon show went up the day before, where we talk about, we've been scrambling a little bit, try and get some stuff done. We got a bunch of really fun retrospectives in the works as well. So if you want to know what those are, it turns out a bunch of really great games came out in 1999, which was 25 fucking years ago. So we're going to do some retrospectives on all those before all the people who made those die. I shouldn't say that actually, because literally one of the people I was looking up in my research, I was like, oh, it'd be great to talk to them. Wait a second, didn't they? Yes. So actually they did pass away like 3 months ago. So it's real. It's happening, folks. Mortal Coil is the ultimate platinum achievement, and it's coming for all of us. It's also coming for all of our incredible battle pass holders. Which one of them will die first? Who knows? It could be Harry Flanagan, Battle Royale Games, Arno, Richard Matherson, James Brown, Mark Rojas, Ryan Cobb, Tucker Morgan, Crimson Cyclist, Sven Huster, Pez, Tim Robinson, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Cameron Ladd, Zachary Snader, Alex Sharp, Alex Goucher, George Sekotis, Jacob Godserve. We know where Jacob Godserve's going anyway when the day comes.
To serve God.
Those pearly gates are swinging open for Jacob. Also, his first name is Jacob. This guy's got the most religious name in the fucking world. It's amazing. Love it. Tohir Tilyav. You might be going the other place, Tohir. Sorry. Not quite sure. And of course, Ryson. Thank you all so much. Whenever I read Ryson, I think of Ricicles. Do you guys remember Ricicles at all? I don't think they were in America.
I did not know about them. I feel like we talked about them like 100 episodes ago, and you told me what they were on this very podcast.
Are you saying we've run out of stories?
No, I'm just saying that we're all losing our minds. What
do you think they were? If you're
this is
trying to remember.
This is the proof positive that we're losing our minds. Is not only have we talked about it, but I don't know. what they're. Okay, let me. They're a cereal. They're like Rice Krispies.
Yes.
And they, I don't know where the sickle comes in.
So they're communist. It's hammer and sickle. So you guys called them Frosted Flakes, I believe. We called them Frosties. So you know that, and we called them Cocoa Pops. Do you call them that or something else in America?
Yeah, there's something like that. They have
Cocoa
like
Puffs,
a
Cocoa
monkey on them.
Pebbles.
Cocoa Puffs, maybe. The one with the monkey with they're chocolate Rice Krispies, basically.
Okay, Cocoa Puffs are the bird with the straw. And then
okay.
I think
yes, they're
Cocoa Pops are the monkey. No, Cocoa. Yeah, Cocoa Pops is the monkey.
Cocoa Pops. So Cocoa Pops is like chocolate Rice Krispies. Ricicles were like Frosted Flakes Rice Krispies.
Okay.
So Rice Krispies with that like basically just sugar.
So it's like somebody took a Rice Krispie treat and sat on it and put it in a bowl for you.
Good point. Rice Krispie treat is I guess that's a bit more marshmallowy, but it's it's in the same. Yeah, that's a pretty close approximation. What the fuck? What did you call them? Cocoa Puffs?
There's Cocoa Puffs and there's Cocoa Pops.
What
and
the fuck?
Cocoa Krispies.
What? Cocoa Krispies. Cocoa Puffs are chocolate though, are they?
Yeah.
Do you have ones that are like they're? Oh fuck! This is gonna do my head in. There was this one in the UK where it was this big, huge yellow weird guy. UK cereals for kids. I wonder, do you guys have this one? I'm sure you fucking.
Oh yeah, and Cocoa Pebbles is Fred and Barney from Flintstones.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah.
Wow. You know what's the most ridiculous, like how is this real? Is those Reese's Puffs cereals?
Oh, those are good.
Yeah. Do you ever get the mini ones?
I don't think so.
You can get mini versions of like all of these now. You can get Trix minis and Cinnamon Toast Crunch minis, and they're basically just like tiny versions of them. So the surface area of deliciousness is increased quite a lot.
I'm such a fucking mark. I just Googled Reese's Puffs and I was like, yeah, I'd probably never eat these again. And then I saw a box with Goku on it and I was like, I should get some Reese's Puffs.
Oh, Sugar Puffs. That's what they were called.
Sugar Puffs. That sounds
Sugar
made up.
Puffs. And it had the weirdest, like, gritty looking motherfucker as their Honey Monster Puffs, I guess they're called now.
You know what this character looks like is like mascot horror games, like
Yes.
like Poppy Playtime and Five Nights at Freddy's. This looks like a cereal themed mascot horror.
100%. He was always weird. Sugar Puffs they were. Yeah, I guess they're called Honey Monster Puffs now. Do you guys have an equivalent to that over here? If you look at the thing.
Looks similar to something, but I couldn't tell you what. Is it?
Man.
There's like Jacks or something. No, those are Apple. I don't know.
It's definitely like a sort of a B or C tier cereal.
Yeah. We should
I think
do,
it's
can we
fair.
just pivot into doing like, can Noclip Crew just become like tier lists of like we eat every cereal and it's like a thumbnail of you going and holding all the cereals and like, then we just eat all
Sure.
the cereals.
Let's just do it. Yeah, let's do it.
I just want to try all the cereals and I don't want to go out and buy them all.
We're running out of games, and Embracer Group has made it so that no games are going to come out for like 3 years.
I mean, we've
So-
never played Giant Citizen Kabuto in a video, so we can't be that close to running out. There's at least that.
I love the idea that we're doing, like, this is what it must be if you have a Patreon for like classic cinema. Like, at a certain point, you've run out of Humphrey Bogart movies, and you're just like scraping the barrel. Like, and I'm not saying Giant Citizen Kabuto is the barrel, but you have to get weird at a certain point, which
Yeah.
is pretty liberating. Probably, I'd love to do a documentary on Giant Citizen.
Dude,
Kabuto.
you would think so about movies, but I keep finding good movies. Like, I just watched a Record of a Tenement Gentleman by Yasujiro Ozu, and it
Right.
made me sob like a child. Highly recommend
Man.
it. The whole thing's on YouTube if anyone. It's also on Criterion.
You might like Shogun. I know I talked a little bit about it last week. Shogun's really good.
I'll check it out.
It's not Kurosawa-esque at all whatsoever, but does a lot. Actually, Frank might too. In a weird way, I feel like if you guys had a baby, that baby would really like Shogun. You know what I mean?
Hey, we told you that was in private.
Looking forward to your beautiful Gordon Freeman weeb baby, wrestling baby. It'd be a beautiful thing. Be a beautiful thing. Is weeb a term that's mean or not? If it is, I'm sorry.
No, weeaboo. That's no. Yeah.
Weeb, yeah, I didn't think
I
so.
don't think that's
I was just-
derogatory.
I was just checking. I might have fucked up my my charisma check there, which certainly happens sometimes in the Fallout televisual series, which we're going to talk about a bit this week because we all watched a chunk of it. I watched all of it. Are there 8? It's a weird number.
8,
Yeah.
8, yeah.
The pilot's like 75 minutes, so the first episode's pretty dense. The rest are like 45 to 50 minutes.
I think the last one might be long too. Yeah, it's weird because one of them's real. One of them's oddly short. Like one of them's like 35 minutes
Yeah.
long. So I was like, what the fuck happened here, guys? Did you run out of memory card footage or? Frank, you've watched like 5 episodes. Jeremy, you've watched the first 4 or so. This is available on Amazon Prime. They just dumped the whole thing up there. It is, of course, based on the IP made by Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyarsky and various people back in the day in Southern California. Am I going to get this wrong? Was it Obsidian or Interplay? It was Black Isle or Interplay? Was it? I always get this wrong because there was a publisher. Let me.
It was published
Let me
by
get-
Interplay. I know that for sure.
Okay, Interplay
Black Isle.
developer and publisher. It says here.
Developed by Black Isle Studios, it says, for Fallout 1.
Fallout 2 is Black Isle. Yes.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I forget this. That whole era always trips me up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, you're
I feel
right.
Like
It's developed by Interplay.
every time, yeah, and published by Interplay, the second one in Black Isle. I always forget the exact thing because there's a bunch of history between what happened with Fargo and Kane and all this sort of stuff. If you want to know any about that sort of stuff, just follow Tim Kaine on YouTube. He does a great job. He actually talked about people being mean to Brian Fargo and stop being mean to Brian Fargo. They were at the Fallout premiere sitting together, just in the Chinese theater a couple of short weeks ago. But of course now it's owned by it's owned by Microsoft now, I guess. Bethesda obviously bought up the rights, turned it 3D with Fallout 3. Fallout New Vegas then was made by our good friend Josh Sawyer and the folks at Obsidian Entertainment. And then Fallout 4 came out in Jeremy's native Boston. Still want to see a fat session of you playing that. And obviously Fallout 76 then was the latest version, which we did a documentary on, which I have zero regrets about whatsoever. I swear. What was that? Fallout Tactics is the one I've always wanted to play.
Oh yeah,
Fallout,
yeah. It's I've heard it's polarizing. I know some people really like it, and some people kind of hate it.
Yeah, it's it seems interesting. I think Tim also designed that, if I'm not insane.
You know what I would like to play is Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, which is like the action RPG that is apparently not super
That
good.
is Tactics, I think.
No. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is an ARPG.
Oh.
There's an action role-playing game named Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. It kind of looks like Borderlands if Borderlands was top-down and Fallout themed.
That's bizarre, because Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel is the game. So you're saying there's a game called Fallout Brotherhood of Steel? No, oh my God, you're right.
If you go to the wiki, it says not to be confused with Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel.
How the fuck did they... I think it's because I never knew Fallout Tactics had Brotherhood of Steel in its subtitle until recently, when on the internet it says that, but the box of it always just said Fallout Tactics in my head. Yeah. So I never... So this is like a recent thing I've been confused about. Okay, so this is an Xbox and PlayStation 2 game. I don't think I ever played this.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone's ever played this.
Oh my God. Okay. This looks... All right, we gotta do some.
Listen, Greg Kasavan said it was a 7.3 out of 10, and he has high standards, so I think it's probably okay.
He does, until they make a bad game at Supergiant. So Hades 2. Wait and see. They're doing a technical test soon, apparently.
Yeah,
so
didn't they? I think they streamed it today, maybe?
Did they?
Yeah, I did not check it out because I was at your house.
Right, yes. And then we'll start. We'll have everyone once again asking us if we're doing season 2 of Developing Hell. Developing Hell, yeah. We should just come out and tell people that we have not been filming with those guys. We talked to them. What was it, a year and a half ago, maybe, right at the start of when they were working on stuff, way before they announced it. There's some stuff we can't tell you about that happened back then. It was pretty cool. Maybe one day we'll be able to, but we had a lovely couple of talks with them. We had an in-person get together with them to see if it was something we should do again. And with them working from home a lot, like predominantly, it felt like we didn't have a strong pitch for how to do it. Outside of, can they remake the magic? What's it like doing a sequel to the first time they've ever done a sequel? That type of stuff. It didn't feel like something that maybe we could do like a meaty series about. The door is still open for us to do a documentary, a more traditional Noclip one, once it's out and once it's in early access. I'm not quite sure. I talk to those guys all the time. We're still talking to them about the Blu-ray. I think the current plan, I think I can't say too much, but the Blu-ray has been, we have it locked in terms of content locked for the disc. This week they were finalizing the designs and the print of them, but they won't be out until let's say summertime is the like later summertime, let's say Q3, let's say this year, late Q2, Q3. But that's when we're planning on doing it. Because they've got some stuff going. I think it's anniversary for the studio or something like that. We're chatting to them about. So that's the deal there. How did we end up on Kasavan? Oh, because Fallout Brotherhood of
7.3.
There you go. Frank, do you ever play any of those old ones?
No, I haven't. I started at Fallout 3 and then
Me
4.
too.
Yeah, but I never played any of the old school ones.
Oh, Fallout.
What's your favorite one?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
I guess it is New Vegas because I think that's the best one. But I because of the show, I re-downloaded Fallout 3 because I never touched the DLC, and it runs at 60 frames on the Series X. So I might be replaying Fallout 3 like 15 years later. No, however many years later. Many years.
It's very good.
Yeah.
New Vegas is always funny to me because I feel there was a Reddit thread on Our Games recently about what game do you think has had the most public sort of switch of, this is bad to this is good. Obviously there's real soft lob ones like No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk. I think Fallout New Vegas is a good shout for this because I also think that its highest highs and its lowest lows are kind of ridiculous because when that game came out, it was fucking lambasted because people were really high on Bethesda and a lot of people didn't know who Obsidian were, I feel like, or especially console players didn't know who Obsidian were, didn't know the history of Black Isle, all that sort of stuff. And the game was a complete buggy fucking mess when it came out. And it took a while to fix it because this was back in 2009 or whatever, right? So Fallout New Vegas was like I can't believe they outsourced this game and they fucked it up. And then obviously they patched it and fixed it a bunch. And then people played the game and it felt smaller. It is smaller than Fallout 3 and it's more directed in a way. It's a bit buggier because they added in the faction stuff, which was cool. But the writing is so good and the factions are interesting and it's so memorable that like over time people started to really appreciate Fallout New Vegas. And then pretty quickly after, like maybe a year after its launch, 2 years after its launch, people really respected New Vegas. And then in the intervening years, Bethesda have gone through a sort of a rougher time in the public eye in terms of what people think about them, with Skyrim and remaking Skyrim and, you know, the sort of confident way they portray themselves and then what happened with 76. And then on the opposite side, Obsidian, I think more people have respected Obsidian and yada, yada. So now I feel like people are really quick to say that Fallout New Vegas is the only good Fallout game, which I think is unearned as well. Like it might be, but like Fallout 3 is fucking brilliant. Like Fallout 3 is like, and Fallout New Vegas, like half of the design problems that make Fallout New Vegas a great game are Fallout 3 because it's that game, it's that combat, it's that, you know, everything, the UI, the world design to a large part, like a lot of like Fallout New Vegas is Witcher 3 Blood and Wine, right? It's Phantom Liberty because they've solved all these problems over here and now we're going to make a sequel to it. It's almost a shame they didn't just make more of them. And then I think Fallout 4, because it was more combat focused or whatever. Like, how did you find that, Frank? I like Fallout 4. I think it has less soul than Fallout 3 in New Vegas because it's like more colorful and a bit more, I don't know, optimistic or something. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. Fallout 4 was like the one game I was able to sit down and play over like the last 4 months. Like I think I sunk maybe like 50 to 60 hours of it. And then like right before I left for Japan. So I didn't touch Fallout 4. I think it came out in 2015 until 2024. But then I loved it. It was really good. Simpler than New Vegas. Like there's way less systems. There's no skill checks or like very few skill checks or anything like that. But it's easy to play. The one thing I did not like or care for was like some of the crafting and base building stuff. I feel like I spent so much time just obsessing over inventory and making sure I had enough like wonder glue and like I feel like that was distracting from the game. But running around shooting stuff was awesome. The Nuka World DLC was really fantastic. Another game where
I forgot about that. Yeah,
like I played on console, so finally playing it on. It's so funny. They just launched or they're about to launch a like Series X PS5 version. But I played the Xbox One version on Series X and that ran at 60 frames. And like I thought that was great. And I feel like I completely missed the opening reception of Fallout 4. Like I bought it back in 2015, but I think I was too busy to play it. So I don't know if people were like hot or cold on it when it came out. I have no, other than the gunplay. That was the only positive thing I heard from it. But I don't know.
Yeah, gunplay. They kind of fixed the gunplay because like the gunplay in Fallout New Vegas in 3, you know, that's, you know, it's not awesome. But I used to always pick guns that like worked best. Like I feel like I used a lot of like bolt action rifles in those games because you could just use a lot of VATs or, you know, slow it down a bit or something. Fallout 4 I feel like was right on the cusp of people getting pissed off with Bethesda. I feel like all the Kotaku stuff happened with the leak about Boston, so all that was going on. And I think like, I mean, this happens every time. If you're old enough, like, you know, people say like, oh, people really didn't like, you know, Fallout 76 because they made it multiplayer-y, and like people didn't like Fallout 4 because they made it less of an RPG and more of a shooter, and people didn't like Skyrim because it was in a weird part of Tamriel, and people didn't like Oblivion because Morrowind let you do more, you know, fucking RPG stuff. And I'm sure there were some people out there when Morrowind came out that were like, what the fuck is this weird alien part of the world? Why aren't we in Daggerfall where it's the entire world? Maybe no one was saying that, but I feel like there's always a bit of that. But the one thing I don't like is that we sometimes echo these like sort of made up judgments about old games, and then younger gamers come in and they hear them and they just assume that that's the way it was or the way it is. And I think Fallout 4 is a victim of that in some ways. I think Fallout 4 has got some great moments. I think world design wise, it might be the strongest. It's the densest. There's so much going on. I think that's why I'd love to Jeremy as a Bostonian to check it out, because like there's so much like there's so much like, is it no, not Wrigley. Wrigley Field's the one in Chicago. What's the one in Fenway, of course. Sorry, Boston people. There's so much like interesting Boston stuff. All the MIT stuff is so smart. Like, yeah, it's a fun ass. It's more factiony. I feel like they took that from New Vegas a bit. Like, there's a lot of that stuff going on in there. And maybe there's an element of Mario Kartism where like your first one of these games is the one that because Fallout 3 will always be my favorite. Although I might go back and play New Vegas if I had to pick one. So I don't know what that says. Maybe the tone of New Vegas is just so strong. I think that's, we all went back and played it recently for that Patreon exclusive podcast. What about you, Jeremy? You did play all the old ones, right?
I have not played Fallout 2. I've played Fallout 1, 3, New Vegas, and I just started playing 76 the other day for the first time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, no, Fallout 1 is fantastic. Fallout 1 is like, it's incredibly bold in its design decision, which basically is just like, here's the main quest and good luck. And here's like a ticking clock. And if the ticking clock runs out, you've fucked yourself. So it's like, it reminds me of like, I'd say this all the time on this podcast that I think like leaning harder into sandboxy game design is something that I hope to see more of. That's why I reference Kenshi all the fucking time, even though it's a weird, like uneven game. I think it's brilliant in the way that it's just is like, here's like a world with a bunch of stuff going on and like, feel free to like poke at the simulation as you see fit. Fallout 1 is just kind of like, oh yeah, you want to like go up to this thing that's way too hard for you and has no relevancy to the main plot, like go ahead. You can waste your time on whatever you want. So it's like, it reminds me of an era of PC games that were very like, not like abrasive, but like challenging in their lack of like what might be perceived as quality of life stuff, where it's like, hey, by the way, like you don't want to go here yet. It's like too hard for you and you're going to waste a bunch of time and get pissed off. Like I kind of like how much it just allowed me to try my best with the tools I had at my disposal to do something that was way out of my league and stuff. So
you're right. You don't tend to get like intimidating games or something. Like I found Fallout 1 and 2 intimidating when I saw my friends play them or talk about them. I was like, man, this looks fucking scary. Like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, because you can fuck up really bad. And also, like, there are, I mean, this is a classic Fallout thing that reverberates even into the later games, but there are, like, factional choices where you walk into a situation and they're like, this guy's really fucking things up, go deal with him. And then you go talk to the guy and he's like, no, actually, they're the ones fucking things up. I'm the good guy. And it's kind of like the moral ambiguity of who you side with. Like, I kind of like how in the earlier Fallouts, it's like you kind of don't feel great about your decision either way in some situations. And I like that moral ambiguity. It's very like gray, as opposed to having like, these guys are the Nazis and these guys are like the virtuous paladins and like you gotta help,
Yeah, for sure. It's always, and all this goes to show that like, I think when I feared the worst with this TV show, because like, I feel like even slight tonal changes. And I totally appreciate if somebody like doesn't like Fallout 4 or doesn't like 76, because tonally they are very different to 3 in New Vegas. And I suspect just from osmosis, gamer osmosis, that 3 in New Vegas are tonally very, I mean, they're also distinct in some ways, but that they're very tonally different to those original Fallout games. I can't talk about the ARPG on PlayStation 2. Who knows where that's at? But like the knife's edge that this stuff walks of like being like, how do you explain the tone of Fallout? They're games that are like tongue in cheek, but also like quite cutting and serious. They're funny, but like gory. Like it's a really hard line to walk. Like I think of things like Mad Max Fury Road that sort of like, lives in that space a bit of, this is super real and raw, but also like comedic in some way. And especially where comedy, I feel like in a lot of modern cinema and TV is fucking terrible. Yeah. Like Marvel stuff and a lot of like, this is so tongue in cheek and winking at the audience in a way that I was like really fearful that they would go, like they would easily drift into that. When the trailers came out, I was like, okay, like it kind of looks like, you know, maybe is this going to be a TV show where I'm just like, oh, that's the thing from that thing, or that's the thing from that, like a reference fucking bingo or whatever. So I think I went in with low expectations and I was pleasantly surprised by the whole thing. But I'm interested in what you guys have to say. Jeremy, first of all, what's your takeaway been on Fallout after your first? Now you've watched half the series.
Yeah. So, I have I like it way more than I thought I would. I don't watch like any TV at all. I don't really like the most TV, like tonally and structurally. It just doesn't resonate with me. I'm more of a movie guy. I there are things I really like about the show. There are things that I kind of dislike about it. But I will address the positive first because I feel like it's lame. Like everyone's enjoying a show. I don't want to be like, this actually sucks. Everyone's wrong and I'm right. I think it's like the thing you were talking about in terms of tone. I think it does quite well most of the time. I think like Fallout is this very weird mix of like cartoonishly over the top, but also very grounded. And so I like the way that Walter Goggins' character plays it. Like Walter Goggins for me Walton Goggins, sorry, is like the strength of this show. He's like pitch perfect for what I think a Fallout show needs to be. He's kind of like deadpan and grounded, but the things that are happening around him are so over the top. So like he plays it as straight as any old Western, but then like blows a dude's foot off and it just explodes. And it's like, I think that like, that's kind of that friction between the groundedness and kind of like deadpan seriousness of a lot of stuff. Because the setting of Fallout is like, it's horrifying. Like this is not a world where people are going to be like, hey, it kind of sucks out here, right, man? This is a world where people are like drinking piss water out of like a bin they found on the ground to survive. But in this, I think Fallout would be boring if it was just that. If it was just like super playing it straight, like if it was Cormac McCarthy's The Road, I don't think Fallout would work very well.
Or Jonathan Nolan, I think he also directed Westworld, which is very. I liked like the first season of Westworld. I think is terrific, but that there's not many yucks in Westworld.
No, it's so dry, and so I think that they most of the time. I do think the show stumbles on Fallout stumbles on this a couple times, but I think most of the time they found a good tonal balance of like playing it straight, doing real like creating real pathos for the characters, putting them in situations that like test them or forces them to confront the way they are, and then and teases out interesting character development through that. But then the things that are happening around them are like a fucking Saturday morning cartoon, but gory.
Yeah, you're right. There's kind of three protagonists in this show. There's Lucy McLean, who is a vault dweller, who you sort of start the show with. Very much the quintessential protagonist in any one of these video games. Somebody who grew up in the vault and then has to leave for whatever reason and venture out into the world. Then you have Maximus, who is a what are they called?
Squire.
He's a squire for the Brotherhood of Steel. So he's not a knight. He's not in one of the power armor suits. He's basically, and I don't know if these squires existed in Fallout before, but the idea that the big Brotherhood of Steel motherfuckers need a pack mule companion to carry around.
It's like a caddy. Like they literally have like a golf bag with a gun in it.
It does look like a huge golf bag. Yeah. And I don't know if that was in the early Fallout, like in Fallout 1 and 2. I'm not sure. If it wasn't, I think it's an example of when this show extends beyond the known fiction in a way that feels completely earned and part of the fiction. Because the fact that these dudes have to run around with massive golf bags full of the stuff, like it's an over encumbrance joke.
Yeah.
Like they literally, and also it's a companion joke, which is like in Fallout, the most reason people have companions is to use them as fucking pack mules in the games. You just like get fucking whoever to come with you and the dog and just put all the stuff on them or whatever.
Danny, I'm curious if this occurred. I wouldn't be surprised if this did not occur to you, but when I say it, it's going to fucking blow your mind.
Okay.
The bags that the caddies, the Brotherhood of Steel squires carry are the Liebeck shitty tripod bags we had at GameSpot that would destroy your shoulder.
Totally.
I felt like I was, because like these bags, the strap was like 2/3 of the way up, but like straddling the whole bag. I just remember running through like O'Hare Airport. I have like permanent muscular damage from these bags. Anyway,
E3 is just where I remember Yeah, because it was like they were really long. They were bags that until you put something in them were formless.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That like, so if you put something long in them, they became long. And then because there was like one big strap that was basically how you'd hold on to this thing, and these bags were big and they'd have things like tripods and light stands. All of the weight was on like one strap that was like on a shoulder, on a single shoulder. So it's not even like you had a backpack. So it was just like, yeah, they were awful. You'd have like cut marks on the backs of your necks from those fucking Liebeck bags. You're right. I have PTSD. We were the squires for GameSpot, basically, back in the day. Frank, what have you made of it? You've watched 5 episodes. What's your vibe with it?
Yeah, I really like it, and I was completely surprised because before like people started watching it and said, "Oh, it's actually good," I had zero expectations for 2 reasons. One, it's a video game adaptation, and like I feel like the tide is changing. Like the Last of Us show was awesome. People generally like the Super Mario Brothers movie. I didn't see it, but
new Mortal Kombat movie.
I like the Mortal Kombat.
Like great.
Cheesy,
Yeah.
but I liked it. So it's like, okay, I guess I shouldn't dismiss these, but it's a Prime series. I've never watched any show off Amazon Prime. I know there's been good ones. I've heard like The Boys is great. I've heard Invincible's great, but I just when I see like even a Netflix show to me is like a B tier. Like HBO is A, Netflix is B, Amazon is like I do not care. Like I'll order manga overnight. That's all I need Amazon for. Like I don't need to watch TV, whatever. So. But then, yeah, I think the thing that really caught my eye, and I think Danny, you tweet or retweet this, and Josh Sawyer's tweeting stuff out, was like, they use so much, like Bethesda, I think, like Todd Howard was an executive producer on the show, so Bethesda worked on the series. There's so many legit, like, assets and art and things specifically from the games where it's like, oh, this isn't just winky bullshit. This is straight up, like, in-universe. It's so authentic, and every episode has so many details that I was, like, freaking out over. Like, even in Fallout 76, when you make your character, they, like, in the wall behind, it's like, good morning or have a good day, go out there. In the opening episode, when Ella Purnell's character is introduced, they have that same kind of like have a good morning, Vault Tech or whatever, like all that stuff. And it's like, wait, so stuff from 76 is in the show? I thought no one liked 76. I don't know. So that already
the Vault in 76 looks so much like the Vault in this one. Yeah, even the outdoor area they have, you know, the special posters up in the background. Yeah, it's all, even the Pip-Boys. There's a shot of like an old Pip-Boy as well. When they're in that shop in episode 2 or whatever, and there's a bunch of stuff there. Tim Kaine was listening. I think I mentioned this already on Twitter, but Tim Kaine did a video about going to the premiere, and he said during that scene he didn't listen. He forgot to listen to the dialogue because he was looking all around the shop and going like, "Oh my god, they put that in there? That's like crazy." All the people who work at Bethesda are posting. Yeah, Nate Perkypile was posting like artwork that people did, like joke artwork that's in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, or Fallout 4. A lot of it is, I guess. Like one of them is Todd Howard on like a Napoleonic painting where he's like on a horse that's, you know, on 2 feet, and it's Todd, and they use that in the background of one of the shots, which is quite funny. I did forget. Sorry, the third protagonist, of course, is Walton Goggins, who I know from like Righteous Gemstones and stuff.
Right.
I think like people.
Hateful
like,
Eight, yeah.
Yeah, Hateful Eight and
Hateful
Django
Eight, I forgot
Unchained.
he was in
He
that.
was Billy Crash or whatever in Django Unchained.
Right. He's one of these people that you kind of know or you don't.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot about him a couple of times. I used to get him confused with, I guess, because he was never in, he does a lot of Western-y type stuff. I feel like he might have been in Sons of Anarchy maybe as well. I forget. But I always get him confused with, who's the guy who played Hitman in like the old Hitman movie? And he was in Deadwood maybe as well or something. Timothy Olyphant.
Oh, yeah.
I used to, I think for whatever reason I get the two of those confused. But he plays a ghoul, Cooper Howard, who's I don't want to spoil too much about it, but ghouls live for a while, and he's not a feral, he is a regular ass ghoul, and it feels very at home to anyone who's played, you know. The first time I heard one of them call somebody a smoothie, a smooth skin, I was a little, I quite like that quite a bit. So what should we dive into? I guess I don't want to get too specific on the episodes maybe themselves. One of the things you made a good point of saying like the Walton Goggins plays it straight. Sort of Lucy, the Vault Dweller, gets to also do that as well in a way, because she is very much the fish out of water, stranger in a strange land thing. The part where she's walking down a like a desert, like the sandy part of the desert or whatever, and she like reaches for her gun when a tumbleweed goes past. I thought was quite funny, indicative of just how lost she is. I think Aaron Moten, who plays Maximus, is fantastic. I think that was the character I was the most worried about.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, do we need to do the whole Brotherhood of Steel thing? Like, do we need a whole section on this?
I was worried he was going to be kind of like thematically speaking and tonally speaking kind of a copy paste of Lucy's character, because they're both kind of like, here's the like naive person in a harsh world, and like let's take this naive person and expose them to how the world doesn't fit their idealism. But it is interesting because the way that they respond to it kind of plays out differently, and his character has kind of like a subtext to it that is I don't know, not less, I don't want to like get into details, but like a different manifestation of it. Lucy is more of kind of like the pure protagonist, and his is like a little more like murky or like confusing to him as he responds to these challenges to his idealism about like the Brotherhood of Steel, how they're these like virtuous knights and stuff, and being confronted with the fact that it isn't all as rosy as he thought.
Yeah, I like how they almost are on opposite ends of the trust spectrum of this world, and they kind of meet in the middle, and or they're at least moving towards the middle, where she is coming out feeling like she's going to be like a part of not quite a messianic figure, but like she's here with all this optimism about the world, and gets slowly over the course of a bunch of episodes ground down into somebody who can maybe survive in this world. And then he is so pessimistic about the world and doesn't fucking trust anyone. And his journey throughout a lot of the series is learning to trust and sort of, be a little bit more, I guess, vulnerable or whatever. So I found that really interesting. And then like I think the Ghoul's arc as well is fantastic. Like the Ghoul might have the best arc of the whole one, because by the end it's my other thing about this show is I think it actually gets better the longer it goes on. I think the first couple of episodes are a bit boring maybe for us because they're very like table setty, like this is the world, this is what's going on. It's a bit how to explain this? I feel like a lot of shows do the thing where like we're going to a different place, where we're here, we're in this area, there's a bunch of things happen here, we go to the next area, there's a bunch of things happen here, we go to a new area, there's a bunch of things happen here. What this show does a lot more of is we're kind of staying with these three protagonists the whole time, and even though they like travel around the world, it's all set in like Southern California, basically like sort of Los Angeles area. What actually happens in each episode is we're getting deeper and deeper and deeper into them, and what is and more about, like, you learn way more about who they are, where they came from, their past, that type of thing, which then informs everything you've seen before. Like it's really fun and interesting because it's not like a Lost style TV show where they're just not answering questions and trying to keep pulling you along. You're getting really interesting, compelling answers to things about them, and then going, oh, which makes you rethink everything that happened before and that type of thing, which I found like they went places in this. By the end, they go straight, they start saying stuff about this world that like I don't think the games ever did. Like they're fucking going for it in a way, like, I don't know, like maybe you want to get to make one of these seasons, so let's do the whole thing. It doesn't do a lot, I was really surprised by that. And I think by the end, I think I enjoyed the series even more. I think the resolution of it it's not amazing or anything, but like I was surprised about how deep in the weeds they went.
Yeah, there's kind of like I totally agree. I think that I really liked the first episode, even though it was a little like setup heavy. I felt like it was strong, and it has like a good spectacle and it builds well and stuff. The second episode, when I watched it, I was the first half of the second episode, I was like, this, I like kind of hate this. It felt,
I'm with you.
Felt very setupy. I was like biting my tongue watching it because it's like, fuck, I'm gonna have to get on the podcast and be like, oh, sorry, I hate this show. It sucks. It felt like I think there's like compounding interest on the returns of these characters, because early on it feels like there's not a lot to work with, and so it feels like a lot of the scene building, like in terms of story structure, is incredibly rudimentary. Especially a bunch of Maximus's scenes in the first half of the second episode, they play out like almost they're like mini parables where it's like they're incredibly predictable. I know exactly what they're going to try to say with the scene. Like I without spoiling what the scenes are, I could just say.
Go ahead. It's like second episode stuff.
The scene where they go up to the cave, him and the guy in the power armor. I knew exactly what was going to happen in that scene.
Right, yeah.
The scene where he goes up to the two guys fighting and he's wearing the power armor. I knew almost exactly what was going to happen with that, except for the way that they twisted it for a laugh. But I knew they were going to like tweak it a little bit for that. It just felt like they had to kind of establish these characters, and the way that they did it felt like it was ripped out of like a screenwriting 101 book. It felt like they were like plug and play archetypal character building scenes from like fucking Save the Cat, you know?
Yeah, there's times where it feels a bit like, this is a weird thing to say. I think a lot of there were some episodes, obviously with a TV show like this, you have a lot of like different directors for different episodes kind of thing going on. There was a couple of episodes, it might have been like 3 or 4 maybe, where I just felt the camera movements and the blocking was so basic. Like it was just like, all right. And then also like some of the, like, there are some directors who are able to work within, like, who understand how the CGI pipeline is going to work and sort of shoot with that in mind. And there's a couple of times, and even I felt this, like, even weirdly in the last episode, I felt like the place where you're at the end is kind of feels a bit like this, where it feels like a sort of like a Disneyland version of the place. Yes, like it's way too clean. Yeah. Or like there was one time where you're outside a super duper mart and there's a bunch of tires that are just around, and you're like, those tires look new.
This was the watching the second episode, the thought that went through my head is this, Galaxy's Edge, the Star Wars theme park.
So that is exactly in my mind's eye what I was just thinking.
The thought that occurred to me is this feels like a show that was both filmed at and would be screened at a Fallout version of Galaxy's Edge. Yes. I've not all of the time. I think the show moves beyond that and finds its footing. But early on, I felt like I was watching like a theme park. Like you would sit down in a chair drinking like a giant, like a power armor helmet full of soda and watch the show.
Yes, a Nuka-Cola fucking fridge beside. Yeah. It's funny because on some it's totally inconsistent because there's one episode later on where they're at a Red Rocket gas station and it's perfect. It looks fucked up. It looks like the exact same one at the start of 76. It looks, Fallout 4. It looks really good. It looks worn. It looks fine. The big fight they have in Philly that first time, that whole town feels like it feels like the Waterworld ride at Universal Studios.
It does,
yeah. And there's just some, like, look at the floor. Look at the floor when you're watching this. It's, you have concrete floors in TV studios so that, like, you can wheel around cameras and shit on them. It felt like that. It felt like everything's too flat. Like you've tried to make, which is a shame to say because I think the production design and set design in general is fantastic. But I think I don't necessarily have a problem with the set design. I think some of the directors were less concerned with getting angles that didn't make it look like a movie set. Like that was my feeling. Like some of them should have been smarter about how they used things like depth of field, how they used their composition. A lot of locked off shots where you can look around. You know what I mean? A bit of motion in the shots. Maybe that doesn't happen. You don't notice it, and I think that in times makes it feel a little bit more or less believable. Especially when you combine it with like comedic acting. Like a lot of this show is comedic acting. Like almost every character in this show is a funny character. I think the cast is great. That's the one thing I think is like really strong. I think Walton Goggins is great. I think I liked Lucy the more it went on, and the same with Maximus. But the bit characters, like who's your favorite person in the vault who's not like a main character?
Frank,
is there
Frank,
any
who you like?
Well, I like the guy from Severance, the bigger guy with glasses.
Oh yeah. He's one of the 3 like on the council or whatever.
He's great. The Johnny Pemberton.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Vault, but Johnny Pemberton, the comedian, one of the later squires, is so funny. The little guy with the mustache.
Brilliant. Yeah, he's. What have you seen him in before?
He was I used to see him like a decade ago. He used to do comedy in L.A., but I feel like he's popped up in a bunch of stuff. He's just done so many tiny roles. But Johnny Pemberton is just a funny, weird comedian, dude. And so I feel
The back and forth between him and Maximus when he doesn't know who he is, all that shit is the funniest thing ever. Like, also, I love how people keep like completely crippling their limbs and then just taking a shit ton of meds, like just taking whatever. It's like very Fallout. So you're just like, you go into your fucking medical bin and you guys go blah 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 jet fucking whatever. You know, just
yeah. Johnny Pemberton was probably my favorite big character. He's also like, there's something I remember him from Harmontown primarily. He was on a bunch of episodes of Harmontown, but there's just something about his like deadpan nature and how like buoyant he's like the most like adorable 42-year-old man in the world. He's simultaneously like 12 and 42 somehow, and like he straddles the line so perfectly where he feels like an adult man but just with like this very kind of like naive childlike energy about him, and he just plays it deadpan. There's one scene where he's in trouble and utters like one of the most blood curdling screams I've ever heard in my life, and it's so fun. It sounds like a scream from like a black and white Dracula movie or something when a woman gets her neck bit.
All right, we're gonna get a little bit from now. I feel like after 50 minutes, like we might get a bit more spoilery now. So if you want to watch the show completely, you know, without anything, I'm not going to talk about the last, you know, what happens at the end of the last 4 episodes ever. We might talk a bit more detailed now. So if you want a completely pure experience, maybe hop off. Chet, Lucy's cousin who wants to marry her in the vault.
Oh God, yeah.
I saw that guy in the trailer and I was like, oh, it's going to be like the lame comedy relief guy. I think he's brilliant. I thought he is so funny. His romance that he has with the one-eyed lady who like seems to like that whole like love scene thing with her ex-husband. I thought that, you know, where he puts on the top and like he was taking it off and he's like, yeah, what was I thinking? No, I'll keep it on. Like all that shit I thought was great. Lucy's brother's brilliant.
Oh, he's
like,
really good. Yeah,
he's really
It's
great.
also so funny that he reads the terminals. Like it's like he's reading the lore to get information. Mm-hmm. It's so funny.
Did you see the hacking mini game yet?
No, I don't think so.
He does the hacking mini game.
I literally was joking about that when I was watching it, that he was gonna like have to pick out the same word from a big block of text.
Literally,
awesome.
he has it's perfect, and they don't overdo it. It comes up and it happens, and you're like, oh, that's very good. He's great though because he plays it almost entirely straight.
Yeah,
like
really good.
There's not much comedy with him, and there's a lot of intrigue. His face, like he's so. I think also like. I really like the idea of that character being like sort of, he's a bit of an outsider. He's shorter than a lot of the people. And I do like how in Fallout there has always been a sort of a, what would you call it? Like, genetic, like not quite, what do you call it when you're trying to like breed like not quite a eugenic thing. Yeah, but there's definitely like a genetic meritocracy or something. Yeah. That they've always pushed of like being like very American and being very like strong and things like that. And I do think the fact that he's not as tall as a lot, like Chet's really big. Like Chet must be like 6'3" or something like that. I do like how they, he just fits it really well. It reminds me of the Pentiment doc where they were talking about how do you make all these people memorable if they're all wearing the same fucking clothes up in the Abbey. In the Fallout, it's the same problem. They're all wearing the same suit. So they have to like, you know, making one of them one-eyed is a good idea, or like, you know, there's a decent amount of diversity in the cast, which helps age-wise as well. There's lots of that old guy who keeps telling people who he voted for.
Oh yeah.
He was fucking great. That guy is such a weird character. Like even bits like that, like just weirdo people like that who turn up for like 2 scenes, but they're memorable, you know? Yeah. You get a sense of who they are. You know?
You reminded me of something that I was thinking about watching the show, which is, so I watched it with Chelsea, who's like the biggest Fallout fan I have ever met.
Oh, cool.
And so she was watching it for the second time around with me because she'd already seen it. Wow. And something she pointed out is that a lot of the characters seem to be to incorporate some of the perks from Fallout, but in a subtle way. So like Lucy's brother would be small frame. Maximus might be idiot savant because he like kind of stumbles into the solution of a lot of problems. And there's a lot of things like that. And I was thinking a lot about like fan service, which to me is like a kind of a dirty word. Like fan service in general is like, you shouldn't make a show because you want people to be like, that's the fucking thing. You should like use those things as background texture. And there were times early on in the show where I was like, oh God, it's like they're hamming it up. There's so much reference here. And I was unsure about how they would land it. But it does feel like they pull off the fan service in a more subtle way with things like that, where it's like, it's undetectable if you're not a big Fallout fan, but if you are, you might be like, oh, is that what they're doing? Is that small frame perk? Or like when Walton Goggins in episode 2 walks in and has the shootout with people in the little shanty town.
Bloody mess.
But not only bloody mess because people are exploding, but also it slows down and there's like very VATS adjacent camera movements. And it didn't even clock to me as like, this is VATS. I was just like, they're like, this is what fan service should be. If you are a true fan, you might clock it as like a potential reference. But if you're not, it is totally indetectable and it does not hamper your experience.
But it's texture. Yeah. It provides texture, even if you don't get the reference.
Exactly.
Like,
it functions
which
without the
I
reference.
Yeah, exactly. It adds. And I think that's why, like, that's one of the really, like, to me, I think like a really good A/B test of how you fuck this up and how you do this right is this on the Halo TV show. Where like, which also I think it's worth mentioning that Halo is a game with, like, I think the story in Halo is fucking stupid and terrible and is just 9/11 or just like, not 9/11, sorry, it's just post 9/11 American foreign policy, the fucking TV show. Let's kill a bunch of religious zealots and be the good guys. But also there's like no, like it's skin deep. It's not a fucking RPG. You know what I mean? It's not this world that's been thoughtfully imagined that you walk around in. It's just battlefield fodder. And most of the games, I mean, a lot of the games take place on a ring world, which is nothing to do with Earth, yada, yada, yada. But I do think like, yeah, it's a good example of like using this really deep world that exists in an interesting way. But you're right, converting all that stuff. Like she even says, I think on her intro bit, she says like she's talking about herself for the video to try and get married to somebody in the other vault, and she's basically saying that she's good at like, I think it's like speech, like engineering and something, or what are the special ones, whatever it is, science and something else. And then later on, there's a part where she and what's his face are trying to like get past some people. Maximus trying to get past some people on a bridge. And to me, it felt like, oh, he doesn't know what to do, but she convinces them. It felt like she like passed a skill check for speech or something like that. Like that's part of her thing, is that she's good at talking her way out of a situation, which she kind of is, even though she's like so naive. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't know what the fuck, especially at the start, but she does continually stop herself from getting killed right at the end. Can we talk about Mr. Handy?
Oh yeah, the Matt Berry cameo.
So I've been a Matt Berry fan like since I was like fucking, I don't know, 16, since Dark Place. I remember trying to show Tamoor Hussain Toast of London, which is the weirdest fucking Matt Berry show, and him not finding it funny at all and me being really embarrassed that I made him watch this really weird fucking British comedy. Sorry, did I say Toast of London? I meant Snuff Box. That was the weird one. Toast of London's also great, but Matt Berry is obviously like, now, you know, he's had a sort of an Americanification. I think he was in Community maybe years ago.
Oh, really?
But he was in What We Do in the Shadows. He's sort of more known. Him as Mr. Handy was fucking brilliant. I was just like, and then have you guys gotten to the point where you learn about the voice about Mr. Handy from the other side?
I don't think
have you gotten that far,
might be
Jeremy?
episode 5 because it's not ringing a bell.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's more great shit all about that, which is I won't spoil it for you, which I was like punching the air. I was like, oh, this is great. I thought we were done with Mr. Handy. This is
there more
cool.
Matt Berry?
There's more
thank
Matt
God,
Berry.
because when they end that episode, I was like, because it's like not a bottle episode, but it's like the segment that contains him is like a bottled environment. So I was like, oh no, that's like he just stopped in the voice booth for a day and did like a few lines. But yeah, he's fucking. I know him from I had a similar experience to you, except it was even one more step removed because I was showing other American teenagers the Mighty Boosh, and
nice. Wow, you were a Boosh fan in America.
The Mighty Boosh. Yeah,
oh wow.
It was like early.
Oh yeah, you've talked about this. Sorry, yeah.
Early internet. The old Greg clip for the like that like became like a meme and people had it was one of those things that like felt like lost media because no one watched the Mighty Boosh over here. And I thought it was so funny that I had to know what it was from, so I ended up becoming a huge Mighty Boosh fan. And Matt Berry, isn't it?
Noel Fielding has like a big TV show over here now.
Is it?
It's what's it called? It's got a really fucking weird name. I'm not sure if it's any good.
I know he's in
what's it
British
called?
Bake Off, but I don't know what else he does these days.
Oh, what the fuck is the name of the new TV show? It's like all over. Is it? I feel like Apple TV maybe are doing it.
Never mind.
Completely.
Sorry.
No, never mind. The Buzzcocks is like what it was is like a music TV show in the UK, which is one of my favorite shows ever. But I don't think it's on anymore. The Completely Made Up Adventures of Dick Turpin. It's called. It's on Apple TV.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he has like an Apple TV show now. Weird.
Wild.
Yeah. How do we end up on?
Matt
because Matt Berry. Yeah, Matt Berry, Mr. Handy. Loved every bit of it. The voice is great. He fits it perfectly. I mean, that's a totally a butlery ass, guy. Even those weird stoners in the Super Duper Mart were great.
Really funny. Yeah. Okay, wait. This is a perfect segue. Let me pitch you guys on a Fallout spin-off that I conceived of last night while watching that episode.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
It is a stoner comedy Fallout spin-off series. It's called Vault 420 or Fallout 420. And here's the bit. So Fallout, the TV show, takes place like 300 years after the bombs drop, and they're kind of like, oh, the Earth is like gonna be rehabilitated soon, like the radiation is dissipating, right? Fallout 420 takes place like 600-700 years after the bombs drop. The Earth is like totally habitable, the radiation's gone, but there is a vault 420 that they never emerged, and they come across it, and they're like, oh, this is still sealed, and they open it from the outside, and when they open it, a big cloud of smoke pours out, like a Cheech and Chong sight gag, and the people inside are like, whoa, we were supposed to leave the vault, holy shit, how long has it been? And it's been like, 18 generations they forgot to leave the vault.
It'd be like the sequel to Biodome.
Yeah, Pauly Shore. We need to get Pauly Shore for Fallout 420. You're right.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, he comes out of the vault. Yeah, that's perfect.
I feel like this needs to be like a YouTube. Remember when people used to make YouTube fan videos? That shit doesn't happen anymore. I feel like.
Yeah, we'll make a Fallout 420 like YouTube poop.
There are so many great cameos in this TV show. I kind of almost don't want to. There's a fucking hilarious one who is the radio DJ who's playing this weird music that they don't. I won't say it. Eventually you see with him and I'm like, oh, that's fucking perfect sun casting. The other one is, who did you say that guy was funny? What was his name? The comedy guy?
Oh, Johnny Pemberton.
So when I saw him, I was like, oh, he's like a young Michael Rappaport. Like that's the vibe I got off of him.
Yeah.
Michael Rappaport is the voice of Night Titus.
Yeah. I wasn't sure. Was it actually him? I wasn't even sure.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I thought it was him, but I wasn't 100% sure. Yeah, he's fucking great.
Oh, it's so good. I'm trying to think what else to chat about without getting into, I guess, too much about it. I guess like weak parts. I guess we talked about the production stuff. Like some of it, I'm not super hot on. I think also because I'm watching Shogun right now, which does an incredible job of making it feel like a lived in real world, and you can tell that they must have had to shoot this stuff on either volumes or green screen / just a lot of really smart internal sets. So I think they just did a better job maybe of retaining that. I think it's really, I don't want to be overly critical because I think the production design and set design is really strong and the look of the show is really strong. It's just when it's not, it really, really does feel like you said, like,
Galaxy's Edge.
That Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Yeah, it has that feeling.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
my biggest complaint, because I am going to finish the show. I'm going to watch the rest of it. I've enjoyed it. It's I would describe it as like fun entertainment, but probably not very good art. I think the which is like most TV. That's fine. It's not supposed to be like fucking high art or whatever. But I feel like the main feeling of like hollowness that I get from it, even when I'm enjoying the show, is that it is relatively thematically straightforward. It is even in moments that I think are good scene craft. Even in one of my favorite moments is when Lucy and Walton Goggins have the like, that's the closest thing we've had to an honest exchange thing where she bites off his finger.
Right.
I thought that scene was really good, but the thematic conveyance, the thing that it is alluding to, the thing that it is like teasing out of these characters, which is like, that's a lot of what like drama is like characters, they're in opposition or situations in opposition to characters, and then you're teasing out ideas, you're like testing out, it's almost like a philosophical experiment where you're like testing out these things and seeing how they result. It felt to me like the themes that they're exploring with this show are very, very simple and like relatively morally binary things of like, here's a character who has like had privilege and has been sheltered away from all the things that makes the world shitty, and now they're like in direct conflict with it and having their eyes opened to it. It just feels like it's like there's not a lot of like philosophical or thematic meat on that bone. And so the one complaint I have is that the show has not really like, I haven't felt very surprised by many things in the show. It feels very predictable. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's like you can make a very entertaining show that is also pretty straightforward. But yeah, I'm also fucking jaded because I've been watching like 1940s Japanese dramas about like orphans from the Tokyo fire bombings. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's a hard fucking convert.
Serious, real shit that's trying to make you feel something. That's like really determined to make you feel something. I will say, I hate asking your opinion on something and then trying to immediately qualify it against something that you've not seen yet. I'm conscious of that I do that sometimes. I'm interested to hear if some of that stuff you feel like maybe they did a good job of once it's over. Because I'll say the one thing I was surprised of as the series went on, and this was, it's hard to, I think there was two things. One, they definitely explore the, you know, when you're playing Fallout and you play Fallout for the first time and you're like, oh, these vaults are because they were trying to, you know, the richest people or whatever, or whoever it was who was lucky enough to get a ticket was in there, and then they got out, and then the world was fucked, and isn't that the thing? And then the more you play the game, the more of these vaults you go to, the more you're like, why are all these vaults having weird experiments in them? Like, why do so many of the vaults I find have like a very strange thing going on that isn't in any of the other vaults, and then this vault is this way and this vault is that way? I think they tackle that from two angles in really compelling ways that make you rethink a lot of what's going on and the motivations of the people in them. And the other way that the other side that they sort of tackle it from is they do a lot more of the before the bombs went off stuff in the later episodes. Like they spend a lot more time there. They answer a lot of questions. It sort of gives you different insight, like into Walton Goggins' character obviously is a big part of that because he's sort of, you know, he's in both of them. A lot of really compelling stuff, like his motivations and what's going on, that all sort of flips on its head a bit in interesting ways. That like make you kind of add a bit of that, you know, character depth that's definitely not there. Like if they feel very like ciphers, like she does a lot as well, of like, oh, she's just like the protagonist that we're sort of enjoying the world and we need somebody to be the cipher to do that, you know, through, and that's who she is. And she kind of, is a bit that way, but I feel like Walton Goggins' character is kind of the meat of the thing, and they explore a lot of that stuff. It's interesting. But it's, I think we're all kind of on the same page. It's like we went in with very low expectations, which is fair, because it just seems like tonally something really difficult to land. And we're all surprised by how, like, it's not like The Sopranos. It's not like the best TV show in the world, but I'm definitely delighted I watched it and would easily watch another season of it, I think. Any final thoughts, Frank? Do you have any criticisms yourself as well? We don't often go to you for you know, the fucking bad stuff. You're a like ray of sunshine over here. But
I dropped off of Westworld because I think it was like season 1 I really loved. Season 2 they go to Samurai World, but then season 3 was like this. I mean, also COVID happened at the time, and it was hard to care during those first few weeks. But yeah, season 3 was just like there was like it stopped being fun. Westworld stopped. It didn't have that fun anymore. Whereas Fallout is fun, but it's not. I was so afraid. Again, talking about tone, I thought it'd be like Borderlands winky meme shit. Yes. I was so afraid because I feel like but like, oh my God, wait, this is actually good and not too much. And when it's gory, it's holy crap, it's surprising. So I think they toe the line great. I read something, Walter Goggins, I was looking at his stuff, and he said like, he said like, my boy's a gamer, I'm not a gamer. So he did not want to play Fallout, and he approached the show critically and being like, okay, does this stand on its own? Do I actually believe this? And so like I think he brought that very well. So yeah, I'm really impressed by it. Yeah, I'll finish the season 1, and then who knows whenever the hell 2029. No, if this is a real video game, the next Fallout. Hopefully, yeah, they put out season 2. I don't even know where season 1 ends, but with these types of shows, I always like more stories. I like more kind of anthology seasons than you know, but I love Ellen Purnell. I think that's her name. So she's in Yellow Jackets. So
is she? Okay, yeah.
That was another show where season 1 I loved, and I bailed on season 2. I was like, I don't care anymore. But maybe I'll give it a shot. But yeah, I'm so surprised, and I will say, yeah, it's good enough that every time as I'm watching Fallout, I had 2 thoughts. One, there's times where I wish I had a controller I could just hit A to get to the next dialogue, because that's how I play those games, because they say the lines. I'm watching with subtitles like, all right, next. But it's not a drag to watch, but that's how I play all those games. Like, yep, I read the line. But then as I watch it, it's like, I just want to play. But yeah, it's really good. Again, not like an A tier show, but it's sci-fi comedy drama. It's honestly, it's kind of like on par with like how I enjoy like Black Mirror. It's like, oh, that was fun. I'll watch it whenever there's new episodes out. And then yeah, so it was solid.
Yeah. They have greenlit a season 2, which is great. So and I mean, on the last episode, they telegraph what season 2 is going to be about pretty much right away, which is pretty cool. Yeah, final thoughts, Jeremy, on it. You're obviously gonna keep going.
Yeah. No, like. It's a very fun show. It's enjoyable. It's entertaining. I think I might have read the same thing as Frank from Walton Goggins, because part of what he said that I thought was really cool is that he didn't want to play the games when they offered him the role. He was like, "Is it cool if I don't play it? Like, I just want to go in blind." Because in his, I'm paraphrasing, but in his words, he said it was important to have people who were like keeping the flame lit for the Fallout series, and they knew what fans wanted, and they knew like what the world was, because it had to be authentic to that world and to the source material. But he said it was also important to have people on set who were like totally oblivious to what Fallout is, because if you had the biggest Fallout fans in the world and that was the entire crew for this show, I think it would have kind of sucked, because they would have had no like barometric meter on if the show was just like, you know, like ridiculous gushing fan service, or if it was actually like, if there was dramatic tension, if there was pathos, totally outside of the reference to like, this is, oh, it's a Pip-Boy, I'm so excited because it's a Pip-Boy. So yeah, I think the show straddles the line a lot better than I thought it would between like constant reference and fan service and actually crafting compelling narratives. Yeah.
I like that he played it like a Western. Like, he's familiar in Westerns. He's that type of guy. Like, his character feels like it exists within that world. It's almost like Nick Valentine in Fallout 4. Kind of, I get a bit of a vibe of that from him. And obviously a lot of the ghouls you meet in the other 2 games, you know, there's an element to that as well. Apparently Ella Purnell did play a bunch of the games, which I think makes more sense for her, because she's in a lot of scenes where you're doing the video game shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're putting on a Pip-Boy and you're exiting the vault for the first time. And I saw an interview with her where she was saying like, she kind of knew the scenes that were the most important, or the ones that were, you know, were going to get, the camera was going to sit on them for a while, kind of thing. Walton Goggins apparently later on didn't realize that when he said, he says the line, let's say, and they actually set it up really well, him saying the sort of the Ron Perlman line. They actually do it in a way that is thematically, he's referencing something somebody else said in a way that I thought was quite smart and poignant. But like when he did that line, he thought it was just another line. He didn't know that it was a line that people would.
That's perfect, because if you put too much weight on it, then it's like if he like looks directly into the camera like fucking Jim from The Office and says it.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently Aaron Moten, who plays Maximus, watched a bunch of streamers and YouTubers. He was like, I didn't need to play it, but I watched a bunch of, which honestly, there's not much Brotherhood of Steel in those games. There's not much like from the perspective of the Brotherhood in those games. You know what I mean? You kind of join the Brotherhood sometimes, but like, it's not like you spend time in one of their military bases very long. Even in Fallout 4, you kind of like, the Brotherhood stuff is pretty thick and fast right at the start, but like, you're not like, you know, doing jump ships and stuff like that, I feel like, or whatever those fucking VTOL helicopters are, those weird things. last question then for everyone. What was your favorite like Fallout reference or enemy maybe, or like creature, or like, let me go first, I guess. What you guys are thinking. I thought it was very obvious, as you said, but I really liked the fact that immediately after dropping in, where Maximus is like, "Oh, to kill things, I'm fucking bored," he runs into a Yao Guai. I thought that was hilarious. Like, if you don't like the only thing you have to worry about in the power armor are fucking Yao Guais and Death Claws, and he ran into a Yao Guai immediately, and I thought that was fucking hilarious. And the fact that he is like, shit, oh no, like he immediately knows he's fucked. I thought that was very funny. Like, there was no artifice of like, how do I deal with this? It was like, no, oh fucking help me. You know, I thought it was pretty cool.
I like the scene when I forget the actor Ben from Lost.
Oh yeah.
But he's talking about the evolution of rad roaches, and I was like, oh, that was an awesome scene. I just thought that, like, she lights a fire, and then this is like episode 2, and then like she's attacked by a rad roach, and it's like, oh, you should know better than that. And I thought that was awesome. So seeing rad roaches, and then yeah, you do see like feral ghouls, and I was like, oh, that's because I just like zombie stuff. So I was like, that was cool. So that.
Yeah, I liked how some of the ghouls were feral and some.
Yeah.
The ones who were locked up in the. He was like, all of them.
Yeah, one's like, thank you, and then runs away. And it's like, oh, that's excellent.
The cool stuff is handled well. I would say that might be my favorite. I think particularly like some of it is just more like straightforward kind of zombie stuff, which is fun. But I think Walton Goggins is probably the highlight for me. Not only his character, but also like because like I said, like fan service is at its best not when it's just like pointing at the thing and being like, remember Boba Fett from Star Wars. I like the fact that they take the ghoul and they extend it into this thing where there's like maintenance and upkeep against becoming feral. I think it turns the ghoul thing into an interesting like dramatic device that Walton Goggins has this like ticking clock on his sanity in his life, and it puts pressure on like on his character motivations, because you're like, why wouldn't he just blow his fucking brains out? Like, why? The good, like, I think good storytelling is when the viewer is in games and movies and books and anything, when the viewer has questions and they're like, why does this character want this? Why are they doing this? Like, natural curiosity about characters and their internal lives, I think, is what is like charges a lot of the narrative battery in media. And I think Walton Goggins is like a complex, interesting character who is compelling. Yeah. He is like morally dubious, morally ambiguous, and I think his struggle to not become feral and to keep going, you're kind of just like, I just want to know more about him as a person. And every time they give backstory of him, pre-war stuff, it's like I like to see the kind of like both sides of his character.
Yeah, I think you're going to enjoy where that stuff kind of goes, because they spend a lot more time with him, I think, as the show goes on. I think my final thing, I think, is I really like how they establish and retain a very bizarre internal logic about how injuries and medicine works. Like, the world, the world as it exists does not have the same relationship with injury and how you fix injuries as our world does, where it's like you can have horrific injuries happen to you, and maybe it's because of this like sort of Deus Ex Machina medical technology they have. None of it seems particular. Like when the guy loses his foot and they stick a fucking like there's like a packaged like fucking
food processor
foot
with a foot on it
that chews up his leg, closes it, clamps on, and then it's just like a boot that he walks around in. Like, there's no like, oh, you're gonna die of sepsis or anything. It's, I mean, maybe that is what happens in the end, but even the finger stuff with her and him, or the lady who got her eye, it's just like, it's kind of reminds me of Fallout when you get like a leg crippled and you're fucked and your arm is gone, and the Pip boy, the Vault boy is like, there's no arm on the icon and he's looking sad, and you're like, oh fuck, have I like lost an arm? And then you just take a bunch of medicine and you feel fine again. Like, I love how that the TV show has that, but it feels real in the world. Like, I think that's bizarre, but it really works.
It works, I think, because it's not like there's no stakes. Like, it's not like someone can have their head blown off and jab a stim pack in. Like, people are both like fragile bags of meat that can be blown apart. And also, like, if someone like stabs a dog with a knife, they can stim pack it and it just gets back up. So it's not like cheap. Like, life is both like dispensable and incredibly fragile, but also like, you're not going out of this world easy, which is almost like, it's almost kind of worse. Like, it would almost be better if you're just like just let me fucking DNR me, just let me go, dude. This world sucks.
Yeah, it's gonna take a lot to kill me, which sucks. Yeah, even like when the gulper, I guess, which is such. I was like, what the fuck is this beast? The thing with the fingers in its mouth. I don't think it had the finger in its mouth, and that's from like a fucking Fallout. That's from Fallout Far Harbor, the expansion pack. Because I'd never seen that before. I had to Google it. I was like, what the fuck is that thing from? It's like a big, like, I don't know. It's like a huge gecko or something, whatever that is. But I love the art design in that they have all the fingers in the mouth. Like, what a weird. Because I was like, oh, that makes sense then how you get so deep in its mouth, because it hasn't got teeth. Yeah. It's not grinding you up. It's just like fingering you or pulling you in. Yeah. Fucking gross, man. And the fact that they're walking around with this head, like the head thing is so fun. Like the fact that she's talking to it as well, you know what I mean? And there's one scene where she's got the head and she's like chatting to it.
Why doesn't she close his fucking eyes? She's holding him and it's staring back at her. Like, just like Boondock Saints the eyes down. You know what I mean? Like,
it was a firefight. Yeah. All right. That's enough, I guess. We've talked a lot about Fallout. If you haven't seen it, you have Amazon Prime, go check it out. I'm sure you could find it somewhere if you don't. Yeah. 3 thumbs up, it sounds like. 3 Vault Boy Walton Goggins thumbs ups from the 3 of us on the Fallout TV show. And yeah, it's cool to see people playing Fallout a lot at the moment. They also patched it, which unfortunately meant that those people making that unofficial Fallout London expansion, which was supposed to come out this week as well, they've had to push it back a month or two because because Bethesda updated the game.
That sucks.
And it like broke a lot of their, because it's like a 60 gigabyte fan mod, which has been working on for like 10 years. GOG are going to host it because it's too big for Nexus.
Holy shit. That's wild.
It's so big.
I've
crazy.
been keen to check that out because a lot of these big, like overly ambitious Fallout total conversion mods like don't happen. Like Fallout Lone Star never came to fruition. There was a Texas Fallout that was like a total conversion mod.
Cool.
Yeah, but it never got finished. So
yeah, it's like few and far between. It's like Black Mesa, as in our documentary, took whatever it was, 14 years. Yeah, like, and that's a single player linear adaptation of a game that already exists. It's not like making an open world and writing all the characters and like London as well. I mean, you can copy London, I guess, but like you have to build London. You have to come up with compelling characters. So yeah, I felt bad for those folks, but it sounds like they're going to get to it. And that's almost the podcast. Do we have one email here?
Yeah, one quick question. And if people do want to send in questions, email us at podcast@noclip.video. And then our question this week comes from Ollie Cant in our Discord. I've been playing Pentiment, and I'm honestly loving it more than I thought I would, and it's made me really reassess a part of history I used to not be that interested in. I also appreciate that it's a historical game that's not exclusively centered around kings plotting against each other, violent conflicts, etc., which helps make it stand out. It got me thinking, are there any settings for games, historical or otherwise, that you would like to see more of that otherwise remain unused, unappreciated, or underutilized?
For a while, I really, really loved Assassin's Creed for that exact reason. I really liked the first Assassin's Creed because when are you ever going to play a game in Damascus? You know what I mean? Like I that was really cool. And Assassin's Creed 2, obviously, same thing with all the Italian stuff, and then even 3 was like cool, yeah, like a Revolutionary War, but you're playing as a Native American during that time. You know what I mean? Like, I think that was the thing that I found compelling about that. And then I don't know, man, those games went way too far in the opposite direction for me. Of there's just too much to do that's a copy and paste. There's too much checklist shit. There's too much talking. There's too much, yeah. Because I'd especially the Viking one, Valhalla. Like I would kind of feel like I would really like that if I could just not have to do half the shit in that game. There's just so much shit I don't want to do. I just don't I don't care. Or it's just not interesting. It's like not interesting gameplay. and because they're breadcrumbing you all the time, they don't need to make it interesting because you don't do anything for very long. And it's just like, I don't care about this boat shit. If it's not going to be fun, just let me do something else. I played the Irish expansion pack for that, which I mentioned on his podcast. I was also crestfallen that they did not pick my hometown, which was the original Viking city, the first city in Ireland, the oldest Viking city. All the Viking walls are still there. I grew up around it. They went for fucking Dublin, of course. Fucking Dublin gets everything. But I enjoy doing that because it was a cool kind of thing as well, like Pentiment, where you learn by proxy sort of a bit more about, what stuff was like back then. In a fairly superficial way, in fairness, in those games. It's not like, I'm learning all that much about. And even the latest Assassin's Creed was set in the ancient city of Baghdad, which hasn't existed for thousands of years. So I thought that was cool. That was like, here's a place that's literally lost to time, was destroyed entirely, and you get to play around in it. And I recently talked about the Thaumaturge, which I also really like. That is a very interesting moment in time, that I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have thought about, sort of, Russian Revolution stuff, but in and around Warsaw. Like, I thought that was pretty cool.
My answer would be Spanish Civil War.
Oh, yes.
Homage to Catalonia is one of my favorite books by George Orwell. He was a British socialist at the time, went out to join the fight against fascism. There's also a movie by Ken Loach that I have not seen in a long time, Land and Freedom.
Right.
I'm not going to say it's like a perfect movie, but it is a very good and interesting movie. But Spanish Civil War is interesting because it was like kind of like a very pivotal period in global politics where like socialism and fascism were both these, or like communism and fascism were both these like very strong kind of undercurrents. And this was a moment where they came to a head in a very like localized format, but that in a way that drew people from different parts of the world because they believed in that fight. So like Orwell went to fight. Land and Freedom is also about a British socialist who goes to join like the like an anarcho-collectivist like regiment, and it has this interesting, like, the reason I think it would make an interesting game is not only the politics of it, but sort of like the micro politics of it, in a similar way that Ollie is referring to like the micro history element of Pentiment that Josh Sawyer talks about in our doc. There are moments in that Ken Loach film where like they're somewhere between like farmers and crust punks, I would say. They're just like a bunch of like normal people who are like, let's just they're just like they're just like a bunch of anarchists who like pick up guns. They're like, we got to do this because like no one else is gonna fucking do this.
Ken Loach must just love that because that's what When the Shakes the Barley is kind of
yeah,
as
true.
Well.
He's a very very political filmmaker for people who are not familiar with Ken Loach. But there's
that and Birds, if you've seen.
Oh, dude, I love that movie. Kess is so it's like relentless. Yeah.
I could never watch it again.
Oh, no. Yeah.
It just fucked me up.
I just
so
sat
much
and
the
cried
first time.
watching Kess. It's so good though. But in Land and Freedom, they're like marching through a town and they're talking about like collectivizing the town during the war to fight against the fascists. And there's like one guy who has the most farmland of anyone, and he's kind of like, well, that's like fucked up if we collectivize everything because like I'm the only one who gets screwed over by that. And it's interesting because it is talking about these things in very like boots in the ground way. It's not like a tax the rich thing where he's like has $10 billion and is like, oh, I won't be able to get my 16th yacht. He's like, this is my life. Like I grow like fucking corn in the field. So it's just a very like small scale version of a lot of big political discussions. But yeah, Spanish Civil War, very interesting. Pre-World War II as well. So it's just like a different time period that hasn't been explored as much.
And just Spain, man. Like you think about, we talked about Blasphemous 1 and 2. Like there's so like oddly, for whatever reason, you don't get a lot of like for as much fucking history and culture and like an empire that was like owns a chunk of the world for a time. For whatever reason, you just don't have Spanish stuff like Pan's Labyrinth. You know what I mean? Like I feel like maybe it just doesn't cross into English speaking territories. I'm not sure, unless you're one of those outside. Ken Loach going to do one for English speaking audiences, or similarly, I guess Guillermo del Toro being just so sort of wildly appreciated. Frank, what's going on with your phone, man?
I'm so
Can
sorry.
you not just hit silent?
I forgot. I'm sorry.
You have to read out the text. That's the party foul. You have to
read the note in class when you're passing.
Thanks for the invite, though. I invited all my friends to the wrestling show on Saturday. So
nice one. Is that the local one?
Yeah.
Because you're also going to one somewhere else, right? I want to dox you, but
So
actually.
I'm going one this weekend in LA, and then the weekend after I'm going to 2 wrestling shows in Austin, Texas. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Keep Austin weird.
Yeah.
Keep Austin wrestling. Frank, any for you? Historical time?
I don't know how historical this is, but I always thought like a Grand Theft Auto in the 70s would be cool.
Oh, yeah.
Like Mafia 3 gets close. It's like the 60s. GTA 3, Liberty City feels like 70s New York, even though it's deliberately like 2001. But like I was always obsessed with Goodfellas, and it's like I'm surprised Rockstar didn't do that. I think like I guess I still need to play the Warriors because that's probably the closest I'll get to that. But yeah, I feel like we haven't seen 70, or maybe we have, I don't know, but 70s New York would be cool. Or I know it's not like a good subject, but like it's been a while since someone tried a Vietnam War game. Maybe there's a great reason we haven't done one, but you know what? I say try it. Or do something with Nixon politics. I don't know. Yeah, try the 70s again. It was such a bleak time in American history. Why not recreate that in video
Dude,
games?
it's funny you say that because I was just thinking the other day. I've been watching. I was like obsessed with like studying hippies and hippie movements when I was in college. Just out of like, it's such a fascinating countercultural movement that was like such a radical bubble, but so short lived. Like the actual like late 60s hippie movement was like a few years. Like the Summer of Love in '69 was kind of the end.
Right.
Like the peak of the Grateful Dead and all that stuff. Like the Grateful Dead played for decades and decades, but the peak of that like movement, the Merry Pranksters and stuff, was so short lived. And I was thinking how bad I want like a Disco Elysium style CRPG that takes place around like the acid tests. Yeah.
Right. God, there's. It's funny how I don't know. Like in a way, like you get science fiction and fantasy, right, which are obviously really big, and even like we were talking about to Josh Sawyer about like he's talking about kind of historical RPGs, and that obviously requires a lot more research and writing and stuff like that. But like in my mind, I go a lot to why don't like the Assassin's Creed thing. I thought there was so much you get out of just the setting, like the way you're saying about maybe there, or like Frank is saying about like the 70s or Vietnam era. You get so much for free that then you can play around with. Ghost of Tsushima is such a great example of like nobody knew about that part of the world or what was going on there during that era, and I'm sure people did, but like it's not like Vietnam or so, you know what I mean? But because there's so much like culture and art around that and history, it just gives you so much. Like even there's a game my wife plays. She hasn't played in a while. It came out, I don't know, a while back now. It's called Banished, and it's a city building game. Like there's loads of those, right? But it's kind of like vaguely set in like, I guess like in my head it was like when like the first Pilgrims kind of like The Witch. You remember that the movie, the Eggers movie, The Witch? Like it kind of then like because you're like banished and you have to like set up a town and do all that sort of stuff, and it's like hard, man. Like the winters are fucking hard, and it's hard. People are starving, and you have to make sure you get enough. Like Frostpunk kind of did a twist on it, but like it's funny how, yeah, like why don't games more often pick interesting times, because there's just so much there.
Yeah, colonial New England is one that I think. I'm biased because I fucking grew up 40 minutes from Plymouth, but like colonial New England is so interesting. I'll keep this short because I know we're running long, but I was reading a story the other day about when the Puritans were around, and they were like struggling both because of their austerity, but also because they kind of like they didn't really fuck with the natives. Like they were like, those people are savages, and we don't fuck with them at all. There were other like more utopian societies there that did like have interchange with the natives, that like learned how to work the land properly.
Funny.
And there was this one guy, I think his last name, it wasn't the famous Bradford, but I think his last name was also Bradford. I'll have to look it up. But he the Puritans hated him so much because he ran a town that actively like traded with culturally and also materially with natives. And he also like he would like had like a bunch of girlfriends who were Native American women, and like they just fucking hated everything about this guy. So they took him out to the Isles of Shoals, which is a famous set of islands off the coast of New England. And they just left him there like fucking Jack Sparrow with like no powder, no nothing. And the Native Americans liked him so much that was like a popular fishing area. In fact, I used to go fishing there as a kid. We like hauled lobster traps and we'd go fishing out there. And the natives saw him out there because they were fishing. They're like, what are you doing out? It's that dude. What are you doing out here? This crazy white guy. And they like brought him supplies and shit because he couldn't go back because they would kill him. And he just lived out there like fucking literally like a fucking Jack Sparrow, but the natives would just like bring him shit. And I thought that was so funny because he just like couldn't go back because he partied too hard.
Wow. It reminds me of like even the Killers of the Flower Moon. I didn't know anything about that. I couldn't believe that was a real story. or like that town was a real place and all that. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but like it's fucking crazy. Like there's so many pockets of history that you don't think about. What was that? Crazy noise happening. So either something is slowly falling down in my cupboard, or I have no fucking idea. Could be a lizard, could be a spider. It's that time of year. Oh, my wife is printing something. That's what it was. Okay, now we're good. We're good. What is it? I don't know. You'll find out on the Patreon show, I guess. Let's wrap up this podcast. We've done a lot of stuff over on Noclip. We're working on a bunch more stuff. I'm just going to go say become a patron and watch the Patreon show if you're interested in that sort of stuff. Become a free patron as well if you want, because we are about to start putting up interesting stuff for the free members. We're going to start putting out like little, like, here's a patron exclusive that you've never seen before, and now it's exclusive for free patrons if you're interested. So go over there, help us out, add to the free patronage as well. But the Patreon show explains kind of what's going on for the next couple of weeks and months, the projects we're working on, the stuff that's almost done, the new podcast, all that sort of stuff. So go check it out. All right, that's the podcast. Thanks so much to Jesse Grasher for editing the show as ever, and we'll see you next week. Bye.